Good morning, YouTube. It's a beautiful day and I'm very quiet right now, so I thought I'm probably going to do quite a few more videos, which would be great because it's nice to be able to help people on a grander scale. So here's another video to liberate your minds. And today I want to keep it reasonably simple. We're going to be talking about how to be in the best possible frame of mind. And in this kind of society right now, where everything's a little bit all over the place, it's very easy to get bogged down in the noise and the stimulation and the doom and gloom and all the rest of it, especially with winter coming in and everything else going on. So I thought I would give you some ideas. Now, I have noticed that when it comes to the way a person feels, and I've got someone I've got people in a therapy session and I'm listening to where they're coming from. What do I mean by that? Now, there are different positions, like perceptual positions. There are different ways so let's go through these one at a time, right? Let's start with circles of influence, right? So we have got different circles of influence. In other words, the further out our circle is, the less influence we have over that. So obviously, the furthest circle of all is going to be world events, right? So if you're watching the news a lot, if you're constantly on social media and you're caught up in the latest trends and the latest things to be worried about or angry about or whatever it might be, it's going to be stressful. You're going to get emotionally involved in that, right? So we're going to bring in the next circle will be, might be just so it might be international news, then it might be national, then it might be local, right? And then, not just news, it could be, so what's my influence in the community, right? What can I do? So you're going to have more control over what you can do in your community to make a difference than what you can maybe on a countrywide scale or a world scale. And you have more control over that, right? If there's something you don't agree with, you can go and do something about that because you don't live far away and all the rest of it, right? And then if we bring your influence in again, could be within your neighborhood, could be within your house. So obviously you live with people, there are things not going the way you want, you have some influence over that. You can sit down, you can have a conversation. But of course, really, you still don't have full control over that. Until you come fully inside the body, into your own mind, you only have control over two things, which is what you think and what you do. And both of those things will then affect how you feel. So the first thing to check in with yourself is, where is my attention? Where is that circle of influence? Am I always watching TV and worrying about things that I have absolutely no control over? Or am I in the moment? Am I thinking about something that's going to make me feel good? Am I doing an activity that's going to help me, or it's just going to make me feel worse? So that's one, I would say. Another thing that people do is they are either focused, let's talk about perceptual positions, right? There are 4, but we're going to talk about 3, but we're only going to really focus on one. So the first position is first position, right? You are in your body looking through your own eyes and seeing the world from that position, right? And that's a healthy position to be, but there are other positions to look from. The second position will be when you take yourself out of your body and then put yourself into someone else's shoes, also called the empathy position, which has positives and negatives to it, which we're going to discuss in more detail in just a moment. And then the third position is you're not the person you're speaking to, you're on like a security camera on the wall observing the conversation in a detached, objective way. Again, that can be very advantageous if you want to take the emotion out of it. But we're going to focus on the empathy position. And the reason for that is, if you are someone that is quite stressed out or generally quite anxious, then living your life in the empathy position is not a positive thing, right? Because and actually I can say this because I lived a lot of my life in that position. And when you are in that primitive sort of survival part of the brain, the flavor or the filter is negative. In other words, when you're putting yourself in other people's shoes and almost looking at you and sort of getting a sense of what they might be thinking about you, but the flavor is worst case scenario and negative, think about the implications of that, right? You will be second guessing everything you're saying. You'll feel on edge. You'll be worried that you're being judged, all of these things. And it affects your emotional and mental and then physical state, right? You start acting as if you know what people are thinking and you don't, right? And therefore that can become very debilitating, and it just fuels that anxiety. It fuels that kind of negative state. So that's something else that people do quite a lot. So again, if you notice you do that a lot, if you're constantly worrying about what other people might be thinking about you, then maybe it's time to put yourself back in the first position, because this brings us into the next thing, which is limiting beliefs. Right? Limiting beliefs, I've talked about in lots of videos, so I'm not going to go into major detail. It simply means if you've got a limiting belief about yourself, I mean, there's two kinds of limiting beliefs about things that you do. Oh, I won't be very good at that, or I'm not a very good learner, I'm not a very good reader, I'm not a very good driver, whatever it might be. Or there'll be things about who you think you are. I'm not good enough, right? I'm not worthy, I'm not this, right? And usually it traces back to something like that, even if they've got some other kinds of beliefs a bit further up. Because therapy is all about digging down to root cause, right? Not all therapy, but my kind of therapy. And once you get to root cause and you deal with that, then everything changes, right? So if you are someone that beats themselves up and everything else and apologizes too much and is second guessing and worrying about what everyone else might be thinking, there's a good chance that the root cause of that is a limiting belief. And my suggestion is you come and see someone like me for that, because it's a bit deeper, it might be a bit unconscious, and it can become very debilitating. However, you could potentially, if you are up here long enough where you're logical, rational, positive, calm, resourceful, start to ask yourself a few questions like, when did I decide that? Is that even my belief? Or is that just something I was told a lot when I was a kid, and suddenly I started to believe that it was true, and I've been acting that way ever since? But in fact, now that I really look at that, that was never true. It's not true then, it's not true now. So maybe it's time to let this go, right? Asking those kinds of questions, tracing it back, realizing that most limiting beliefs are simply misunderstandings that were taken as a fact, right? So that would be something else to look at. Are you is your position coming from a state of there's something wrong with me? And you might not be thinking that consciously, but when you start to examine what you say to yourself on a day-to-day basis, you'll realize that you're almost, the context of everything you say and everything you do is that in some way there is something wrong with you, right? And that on some level you don't deserve to be happy or liked or whatever, successful, whatever it might be. So that's another position. And the final one I'm going to talk about is, it's all about whether you're problem focused or solution focused, right? In the sense that it's good. So, okay, obviously those two things are very obvious, but there is a subtler version of that, which is, are you a moving away from or a moving towards? In the sense that it's good initially to move away from your problems, your negative thinking, your beliefs, your this, your that. But if you only stay in that position of moving away from the problems, your focus is still on the problem, right? So it'll be like, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that. And you're moving away, that's great, right? So you got far enough back. But on a bad day, you're still looking at that, so you're going to gravitate back towards that, right? It would be much healthier, instead of saying, I don't want to smoke, I don't want to smoke, I don't want to smoke, it would be better to say, well, what do you want? I want to be healthy. I want to feel good. I want to exercise. I want to do this. So even on a bad day, you might be moving away or gravitating away from it, but you're still looking at what you want instead, right? So are you solution focused or are you problem focused? Do you literally measure your progress based on how much or how little of the thing that you don't want is happening. So if you're someone that gets anxious states, are you measuring your progress on how anxious do you feel today? That's not healthy, because if you're doing that, you're still focusing on anxiety. Wouldn't it be better to wake up and say, how good do I feel today? And even if you don't feel that good, you're still focusing on feeling good, right? Makes a huge difference. So what are the solutions to all of these different positions? Well, let's start from the beginning. Circle of influence, right? Bring it in. Yes, it's okay to be aware of what's going on in the world and to keep tabs on what's happening, right? To be informed, but don't live out there. Don't start like your day kind of going straight to your phone or the news and kind of then all the doom and gloom pouring in. If it's important, this is my attitude. If it's important, I'll find out, right? It will come to me. I don't watch the news. I don't have a TV license, right? I don't have anything going on like that. I'm happy as you would have no idea. Anyway, the point is, circle of influence, right? Keep it as close in on the things that you do have control over, right? Your thoughts and what you do, which drives your feelings. Second one was the perceptual positions, right? So empathy position. Empathy position isn't bad, by the way. So think about it like this. If you wanted to feel really good about yourself, but you struggle to do that because you have low self-esteem. If you put yourself in the empathy position of someone that loves you, and that doesn't have to be a person, that could be your dog, right? Someone that loves you unconditionally. And really, for a second, leave your thoughts and your body behind and put yourself in their position and almost look at yourself in the mirror as if that dog is looking at you and how it thinks and loves you unconditionally, or that person, your mum, your father, whatever it is, your best friend. The feelings will come, right? And that's a really healthy thing. You've used the empathy position to feel good about you, right? However, if you are already in that negative, primitive survival part of the brain where nothing good happens, there are no resources, and you are naturally negative and assuming the worst and obsessional and all the other things, and then you're putting yourself in the empathy position, you'll be thinking about all the terrible things that people might be thinking about you. So stop doing that. If you catch yourself doing that, remind yourself, you are not a mind reader. You have no idea what most people are thinking. In fact, I'll tell you what most people are thinking at. They're worrying that other people are thinking about them. They're worrying about how they look. They're worrying about how they come across to people. They're wondering if people can see their insecurities, right? Or they're wondering about what they want for dinner tonight, right? They are not thinking about you. Don't give yourself that much credit. They are so self-absorbed, most people, it's unbelievable. And that's normal, that's natural. It's the way society has programmed us by, like, am I wearing the right clothes? Am I saying the right things? Do I look the right way? Is my hair, whatever it is, right? You get the point. So second thing then. So when we talked about limiting beliefs, start questioning your beliefs. Is that true? When did I start to believe that? So how would you rather believe? What would you rather believe about yourself? Beliefs are potentially slightly trickier than some of the other things I've mentioned here today. So if you need support, get in touch, right? And then the last thing then is about, are you focusing on your problems or are you focusing on the solutions? Are you moving away from that and still focusing on that, or are you moving towards what you want and keeping your focus on what you want? Because I bet a lot of you wake up and think, right, what have I got to think about today? What am I worrying about? It's almost like you start the day by thinking about what problems you have to solve or what might go wrong, right? Not a great way to start the day. So be solution focused, right? I suppose we could summarize all of this is really by being present, about being focused on what you do want instead of what you don't want, being in a kind of a solution-focused mindset. How do I solve this rather than what might go wrong? And also about being grateful for what you do have. That's something else a lot of people do a lot of. It's they basically fill their time focusing on all the things they don't have, right? Looking at other people like they have the big house, they have this, they have all of that stuff. It makes them feel miserable. it's actually a lot healthier for you to spend your time thinking about all the things you're grateful for. And actually, it boosts your immune system for a start and all kinds of other healthy things going on in the body. But the other thing it does is it's more likely that those things will gravitate towards you if you believe in that kind of thing, right? So hopefully this video has been helpful, and it's occurred to me that I never do this, but I'm gonna suggest it, because a lot of people say, oh, your videos are really helpful, they keep me in, and why don't you have more followers? I think the reason is I'm not really promoting it that much. So, and because of the way that YouTube is, it's all about likes and people sharing and subscribing and all the rest of it. So really, if you feel like you've got some value for this video, give it a like, share it, whatever, you know. And I'm not saying this because I want to be recognized or famous, whatever like that. Not interested in that. Just want to spread the message wider. If you think this has helped you, share it with somebody else. Have a great day. I'm going to go and enjoy the sun. Take care.